Okay, and we are recording. Okay, welcome back to the POPCAST. I'm recording at noon. This is weird. But yeah, this is the POPCAST where I talk about all things popular music and popular culture. If this is your first time listening, I'm Alicia. And if this isn't your first time listening, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. This is actually going to be our second to last episode in this series of episodes for the POPCAST. This is your first time listening. This is for my honors project, and since I do have to do a big report and stuff and gather data and all that fun stuff, I am getting all these episodes out so I can work on the final paper for that. So this will be put on hold while I work on all that stuff. But I do enjoy talking about music and stuff, so I would like to bring it back, once that project is done. So it will be on hold for a few months while I get that all put together. But, once I, graduate and stuff, I would love to bring this back and, talk about music and maybe change it up a little bit. Maybe bring some guests on, all that stuff. So don't worry if you really like listening to me talk. I'm going to try and bring it back. Don't you worry. But yeah, on this episode, I want to talk about, kind of keep it more relaxed and talk about the idea that the formal idea of a band and the idea that maybe bands are disappearing, because as I was doing research for the podcast and formulating what episodes I wanted to have and stuff, and going back and forth and changing things up and everything, I found this piece that was published in, let me see, published almost a year ago in March of 2021. And its title is Why Bands Are Disappearing, Young People Aren't Excited by Them. It was published on The Guardian. As always, I will have it linked down below for you. And I found that I was really caught off guard, because as someone who is into the pop punk rock, all that stuff, though there's bands all over the place, and I'm excited by bands. But this is kind of talking about the idea of a major band, a Maroon 5 kind of thing. Sorry, I'm lowering the mic because I'm not that tall. It's kind of is the idea of a formal band of a major band in the pop scene or anything like that, younger generations, is the band going to disappear? Are people not going to be excited by them? That kind of stuff, because I found it kind of interesting. I as I was reading the article, and in the world of everyone can do everything from their laptops and on their own and everything, is the band gonna disappear? I kind of just want to talk about my thoughts on that and things, because I found it kind of interesting. I'm gonna keep it more laid back. I thought it was the last formal episode. Kind of keep it kind of chill, share my opinions on it. Because this podcast is about popular culture and popular music, and so I feel this is really relevant, because is the future generations, future people, culture, is society moving towards elimination of the band? I don't think so, but sorry, I'm trying to take off my flannel because I got really warm. But I kind of just want to talk about that, so that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, so if that doesn't interest you at all, go ahead and stay tuned. And if you were I don't want to hear this, go ahead and click on my channel name below if you're listening on YouTube, and listen to my other episodes, because there's probably one out there for you. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Okay, so this article talks about the success of bands going down. Possibly young generations aren't excited by the idea of a band anymore, and all that stuff. And like I said, this was when I first saw that headline, I was what? Because like I said, I am someone who is, listens to a lot of bands. Most of the music I listen to are bands. When I'm listening to my favorite artists, 99% of them are bands. I talk about Pally Royale, Water Parks, Badflower, Boston Manor, Neck Deep, Knucklepuck, Sleeping with Sirens, My Chemical Romance, like all this stuff. And like most of those bands are still making music and selling out venues and stuff. So like to me, like in that realm, I don't see a decrease in them because I feel like I'm always finding new bands to listen to. But I guess if you look into like the eyes of like mainstream radio pop music, like is there a decrease in the popularity of them? Because if you think about it, like if you look at like top hits, so how many of them are like bands, probably aren't a lot of them. So I'm gonna kind of go through this article here. Talk about some of the points they make. Talk about my thoughts on it because I find it really interesting because I think this can really all depend on what realm of music you listen to, right? Because like I said, what I listen to, there's bands all over the place, but maybe if you're more into like rap, hip hop, or typical pop music, there might not be a lot of bands and there might not have been a successful band in a while. So is that showing that, the current people who are listening to that music, younger generations, aren't excited or into bands anymore? Possibly. But then if you look at like what you define as like a band or like K-pop, there's always K-pop groups and things like that and like boy band stuff. So like, does that count? Because obviously K-pop and stuff like that's still very big and there's still tons of successful K-pop groups. So, does that count under the realm of a band? Because, they're not that traditional, everyone playing this instrument kind of stuff. So, it's still like a band because it's multiple people and stuff, but, or maybe they call it a group more than a band, it's just like, it kind of all looks at how you define a band. I think, would you define maybe as successful? What realm of music you're listening to, like what referencing one of my first episodes, genre of music you're listening to. Like, I think that could all change, how you feel about that topic, that what your opinion is, and everything like that. Because, like I said, when I saw this article, like that thought had even crossed my mind that the idea of band and success of a bands are declining. So I found this very, very interesting. So I'm gonna kind of want to go through this article here. Kind of bring up some of the points they make, stuff like that. So, yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into it. Kind of just reading this article and, like, looking through it. So one of the points it makes is that, there aren't many bands around now, and it's like about how many people will make music in isolation because of technology, right? So like it's so easy to make music by yourself, at home on your laptop. You could easily, if you can afford it, buy equipment, with, and make it all at home, and do it by yourself. I know like on my laptop, like I could easily like download programs and stuff, and work on my own music if I, had that kind of interest or talent. But so it's more likely that people are going to make music by themselves, and so that could have caused there not to be a lot of bands around now. And I think, with COVID, that probably rang more true, right? You're stuck at home, you're not able to hang out with people, you can't go and, have rehearsals or anything, you're making music by yourself, and it's harder to, make music with other people when you can't meet up. Of course you could do it, but it can get exhausting. It can get hard. It can, just not work as well. Or if maybe you didn't know anyone who would want to do that with you before COVID, and now you're like, well, I can't go out and meet people, so I'm just going to make music by myself at home. So that probably does play a big role in it, the technology and the ease of being able to do it without the need to work with anyone else, that could definitely play a role in it, right? If you go through, like I said, TikTok, referencing my TikTok episode, there's so many people, like, just making music on their own, from home, on their laptops, maybe they know someone who could, like, help them, like, produce it and stuff, but, like, they're not actively, like, making music with other people, like, they're not forming a band, right? So that probably does play a role in it. A lot of people are getting more comfortable doing it on work with them or form a band, so they're working on it on their own. That's a thought. So I think COVID and everything pushed that more forward, and people came to that realization that they can do it on their own, and so maybe they didn't feel the need to worry about forming a band with other people, or they didn't really have an interest before COVID, and so then they were like, well, this is my time. I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have anything else to do, so I'm just gonna start launching my music career at home. And so it's like they launch it, and then if they gain some success, they're like, oh, this is it. This is just me. So they're like, there is no process or time or chance for them to form a band. So that could definitely be a role in it, and and with COVID and everything, and with apps like TikTok, a lot of, I think, younger people, they find individuals that they become a fan of, right? Like, they find TikTokers and other things that they become a fan of, so they're used to just like it being one person, so they're not used to or are drawn to bigger groups. So they see like a group or a band, they might not be drawn to it, and so they're just going to continue to support an individual person, like they have been like supporting a TikToker, right? Like, sure, like the Hype House or whatever, but like those aren't groups. Like, they just collab with one another. It's more like music artists collabing, right? It's their own brand. So I think with the age of social media and people marketing themselves individually, that could definitely play a role in how younger generations are viewing celebrities, are viewing like everything. They're used to it being individual, so they're gonna be more inclined maybe to support a solo artist than maybe a group. That's definitely something that could happen. They're just not excited about a whole group because they might just be like, oh, I don't want this. Like, there's a lot of people here to like pay attention to, but if they just have one individual person that they can follow and keep up with and listen to, it maybe is more exciting for them. It's easier and it's quicker, which in the age of technology and social media, a lot of people want things easy. They want it quick. They want it at their fingertips. And to some people, maybe the idea of having to support more than one person just seems exhausting. Not in my eyes, but again, I don't like keep up with every single member of every single band, but like I listen to, but like I'm able to keep up with a lot of bands, but maybe that's like them keeping up with a lot of solo artists. So I don't know. To me personally, I don't mind. Like, I love a band. I love all the members. I like learning about different members of bands and following them on social media and stuff, and seeing them at shows and things. But again, that's just me. Maybe because I grew up with like One Direction, I just like was like, I'm used to supporting 5 people. So like, I don't know. Maybe it's like these people didn't, like these younger generations, maybe they didn't grow up with like a group, like a boy band that they like absolutely were obsessed with and like kept up with on the daily and like followed all their social media accounts and still keep up with to this day. I don't know, maybe that's just me. So that's just a thought. I don't know, I'm getting off tangent here. But yeah, maybe my like years of late nights and constant obsession of 4 British, 1 Irish boy and a boy band trained me to become a band obsessed pop punk person. I don't know. This one talks about how starting a band can be expensive, which I mean, yeah, yeah, if you think about it, like having to have equipment, place to rehearse, having to pay for travel for all those people to transporting equipment, and so like when you're starting out, that can be really daunting and impossible. So it can seem like, well, why bother, right? Like, if I just have to pay for myself, that's a thought. So I don't know, like, it's say you're saving money, you can just do it on your own. So it's a thought. and the article does bring up the social media aspect again. Like, social media is built for self-expression. It's very much something where you just promote yourself, so having to promote a whole group of people can be difficult and not really fit for social media. You can do it, but it's going to take more work, and then you have to so you have your band's account, and then you have to promote your other social media accounts if you want to grow your own following. And so it's like, you put energy into just promoting the band socials, or do you promote your own? Do you promote the band on your own? So it just can be really tiresome and difficult, and something, when you're first starting out, you may not want to navigate. And if you're not already an experienced social media person prior to, sorry, my wrist is buzzing. If you're not an experienced social media person prior to, starting a group, it can be overwhelming, it can be difficult, it can be tiresome, it can seem impossible. So that could be a deterrent, right? You're just like, well, I can't really promote a whole band on like a social media account, whereas like social media is built just to promote yourself. So I'm just going to continue to do it on myself. So like that can definitely play a role in it, right? In the age of social media, and that being where bands, and that being where people need to be and use and become good at to gain a following, it seems a lot easier to just, promote yourself. And if you already have like your own social media account that's like doing kind of well, it's easily translatable to promoting your own music. So that definitely does play a role in it, right? Like, if you already have a couple thousand or so followers on Instagram or TikTok, okay, you start making music, that just translates. You just continue posting it on yours. You already have that following, and then you just continue to gain that following. So it's just like, it's in the age of social media being everything, it leans it more self to being an individualized career path rather than a group, which is true and can be a very valid and compelling reason for people to just continue to do it by themselves. But I think it can be done to do it as a band. But again, I'm someone who loves a good band, so I very much see both sides to each argument. But I definitely do see the points that it's making, talking about why everything is pointing towards being a solo artist. So yeah. It talks about, not wanting drama within groups and people. Like, of course, like, you start a group with people and then you're kind of reliant on one another, right? Like, you're working together. You have to be in sync and, like, on the same wavelength and, like, really willing to compromise. And if something happens and there's a fight or a fallout, like, it can be really messy. And, like, it's like, well, what do you do now? Like, especially if you already built a career. Like, if you have a whole career going and groups and things and, like, following and albums and you're on tour and stuff, and then like something happens, like that can be very difficult, very messy and expensive and like tricky. It's like, well, where do you go now? Do you kick someone out of the band? Do you work it out? Do you fill a spot? Do you quit? Like, it can be something that even the idea of that possibly happening can be enough for people to just be like, I'm just gonna do it by myself, right? Like, and it's, if you don't like drama, and you're already someone who doesn't like to work with people, starting a band is not going to be for you, for sure. And so the idea of possibly having to work with others, or the chance of something happening within the group, drama, arguments, betrayal, whatever it may be, can be very difficult, right? So yeah. And this article also talks about, like, it gets into data about, like, charts and, bands not being in the charts or anything like that. Like, it talks about, like, UK and then US and Spotify and all that stuff, them not charting or, like, them not highlighting festivals and everything. So if that interests you at all, again, like, the article will be linked down below for you to check out. But yeah, so I guess I just want to kind of talk about my overall thoughts, right? I think it's very difficult to say, whether or not the band's gonna disappear. I don't think it will ever go away, especially not in the world of like rock music and stuff. It's not gonna go away, right? It's never gonna disappear. It's not gonna be something that's just gonna poof, go bye-bye. It's not. Like, let's be real here. It's not gonna go. It's not gonna leave. I think possibly in other genres of music, like pop music, rap, country, maybe, like things like that, other genres of music, it could very much become less and less popular. Like, if you think about, like, when was the last time, like, a band, like, kind of like a Maroon 5, like, hit big? Like, it hasn't been a while. Like, it's been a while. So, it's hard to pinpoint, yes, it will go away, or it will stay around. I think there's a lot of things that can happen, a lot of trends and things to think about, that possibly the idea of a band will disappear or will morph, and also what is considered a band. I think we're going to see a lot more collabs. Like, we already are seeing a lot more, like, crossovers and working with other people, but they're not going to necessarily form a band. Like, they're going to maybe work a lot together, but they're not going to, like, say, oh, we're this band. So I don't think it will go away. I think there's going to be changes in it. I think there's been a lot more collaborations, all that stuff. So, but again, I don't think in the world of rock music it's going to disappear. I think there's still going to be bands. There's still bands forming. It's hard to say, right? It's hard to say, yes, bands are going to completely disappear. It's hard to say that, yes, no one in the younger generations are going to listen to bands. Because I think there's always going to be a market for it, right? There's always going to be people who like the idea of a group, the idea of a band. They're going to be drawn to it, like people like me. But, like, I think there are a lot of people who prefer solo acts, and I think there's a lot of people who prefer making stuff on their own. Especially, like I said, COVID definitely pushed a lot of people in that direction. It pushed a lot of people to move towards working on their own. It pushed a lot of people towards the realization that they can do it by themselves. They have the ability to. So, do I think that there is a valid argument for the idea that bands are going to disappear? For sure. But I don't think they're ever going to fully disappear. I don't think that every single genre of music is going to completely eliminate the band. I think it's going to change, it's going to morph, it's going to move more completely into the realm of, like, rock music and stuff. That's where all the bands are going to go. And in other genres, they're going to kind of dissipate. I don't think we're going to see maybe a lot of, like, bands that are made for, like, the mass market, like for radio hits, for appealing to everyone, because I just don't think that's going to work as well anymore. So people that want, like, overall arching success, that are, like, they're everywhere, they want to sell out stadiums and stuff. Do I think that a pop band or, like, something like that's gonna stick around, or, like, have a bunch of those? Maybe not, but I think there will be spaces where bands will fit, and they're gonna have the success in their own realms, and they're gonna have success that works for them, and there's gonna be people there who are gonna support them. So that's what I personally think is going to happen. I think, in the age of technology and everything, people are realizing they can do it on their own, and they're going to have success on social media, and they're just going to continue to market themselves that way, and, work with other people, other, artists, other, like, singers, songwriters, musicians are going to do that stuff. Like, we already see, like, Travis Barker working with everyone. I think it's going to be more like that. It's going to be like, oh, I like what you do with this, so I'm going to work with you on a bunch of stuff like this. But they're not going to have a formal band. And I think that's going to work. That's how people are going to go. That's how it's going to be. It's going to be a lot easier than, like, having, the drama of constantly working with other people and having a formal group. Having to, pay constantly for all that, especially when you're starting out. It's going to be a lot cheaper to just do it on your own. Even market yourself as an independent artist, maybe don't sign with a label. I'm just referencing all of my other episodes on this episode, aren't I? And I think that's where people are going to find their success. That's where people are going to find their niche. That's what's going to work for them. So, I mean, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a lot easier for people to gain followings that way, especially in the age of social media. and people just wanting one single thing, one person. They want the whole package in one. They don't want to have to pay attention to a bunch of stuff. So that's possibly where I see this going. So yeah, that's kind of what I think. I don't know. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting topic to think about. It's very I see the arguments from all ends. And like I said, as someone who is still constantly listening to bands and are finding new bands, it's something that was hard for me to wrap my mind around. But then if you put it in the aspect of mainstream mass market music, it makes sense, right? For someone who wants that global success, that viral success, that everyone knows who I am success, doing it on your own, marketing yourself as a solo artist is probably the way to go. It's gonna be cheaper. It's gonna be easier. It's gonna work out a lot easier to market to a lot more people as a solo artist rather than a band. And that's just the reality we live in nowadays with social media. Marketing yourself as your own brand, as your own person, just yourself, is a lot easier. So that's that. This episode is probably a little bit shorter. It's hard. It's just that. Like I said, I'm still very much love bands. I prefer bands. I like that a lot better than solo artists a lot of the time, but I have solo artists that I listen to all the time still. But if you go through my music, I listen to a lot more bands than I do solo artists. So it was, I think, really interesting for me to think about and break it down from like a rock group, rock music, punk rock, pop punk, all that stuff, and put it in the terms of like popular radio hits, bigger festivals, mass media, mass market, mainstream success. And it is something very interesting. So, like I said, I will link that article down below for you to look at. I just took a very few points from it. It has interviews with members of different bands. It has information about like festivals and like charting hits and stuff. But I can take it as like an overarching view, because I don't know, that to me just seems a lot easier to put in perspective. Yeah, I don't know. It's something very interesting to think about. It's hard to imagine a world where bands don't exist, right? So for me, I will always love a band. I will always listen to bands. I will always support bands. I think a lot of people are like that. But maybe, like I said, the younger generations, maybe that won't be a thing. They're gonna have like maybe like their groups of like similar to like a boy band or a girl group or something like that they'll support, but maybe it will just be mostly solo artists, but I think there's always gonna be people who want to form bands. There's always gonna be people who grew up listening to like the Green Days, and who else? The rock bands of like the 70s and 80s. They listen to like groups like that. Maybe they grew up listening to Queen, or they grew up listening to Led Zeppelin, or but I'm drawing blanks on all bands nowadays. Like they grew up listening to like the pop punks of the 90s, like Sum 41 or Simple Plan, or or they grew up listening to like Metallica or Iron Maiden or anything like that, and they grew up listening to, or like even groups that are big now, maybe like people who are like younger than me who grew up listening to like, who are like little kids now, they listen to like Sleeping with Sirens or Pierce the Veil or whatever, and they're like, I want to be like that, so they're gonna form groups or anything like that. So they want to form a band, and they're gonna want to work towards being like them. And I think there's always gonna be around. There's always gonna be an appeal for that. There's always gonna be people who want to do that, and there's still gonna be outlets for that. There's still gonna be people who want to support that, but it might just be a little bit smaller than maybe it was 10 years ago. So it's just something to think about, something to ponder, something to think about, Didn't keep an eye out. I'm definitely gonna like watch as I like grew up and like entered my career and stuff, and see where I end up, and see what happens with the music scene, because it's very interesting. The music scene's constantly changing. You know, how it's marketed, what people like, what people are drawn to, what music's put out, how they're releasing music. You know, what kind of stuff they're making. So it's another thing to keep an eye out, and that's kind of what I think this podcast did, was like bring attention to all these different things of music, and you know, things to keep an eye out for, and see how things change and morph. You know, it's gonna be interesting to look back in like 10-15 years and see, you know, what's changed, what's popular, what people are listening to, how people are listening to music. So there's another thing to keep your eye on, I guess. But like I said, I will link that article down below for you to listen to. I will link all my social medias down below for you to listen to as usual. My email will be down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you disagree, if you agree, have different thoughts, anything you want to add, comment them down below, reach out to me on social media, email me, all that stuff. But I just ask that you be respectful and not be respectful back. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. This has been really fun. My next episode will be a little wrap-up conclusion episode. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. This has been a fun journey, and yeah, I'll see you in my last episode next time for now. But yeah, you know, share this with your friends, share it with everyone, because I really like making these, and like every listen helps. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, share it, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But yeah, I'll see you all next time. Bye.